What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to 8 Cubes. I am joined by guest host Butt, High Infinite Grinder, one of the best players in the world, to talk about the 8 most important topics in Marvel Snap, starting with the first of the 8, the card coming out this week, Muse, a 3/3 with an ongoing ability that for every one of your locations that a card of yours has been destroyed at, he gets +3 power, potentially up to 12. When you see a card like that, but where does your mind go?
My mind goes straight to a deck I used to really like that is kind of not really, can't really keep up right now, which is Deathbird. You know,
Sure.
Mysterio, Squirrel Girl. You kill as many of those cards as you can. Maybe you already play the Mockingbird out and you get a death going, which honestly is probably still not going to be that good, even with this card. But I can't wait to try it. The other thing that goes straight to mind is Morgan Le Fay, which will probably be more competitive. Maybe a little bit. You're kind of cramming this in a little bit more. It's maybe not as good of a fit, but you can still do Squirrel Girl. I mean, it's a Squirrel Girl Killmonger card, right?
Sure.
That's like where you're really gonna find its home. That's a package. Is that package going to be that good? I don't necessarily think so, but I'm looking forward to trying it.
I think that what's interesting about Muse is there's cards that come out sometimes that hook really well into a tech card, right? Pixie Mobius, Techno-Organic Virus Mobius. This card hooks incredibly well into Killmonger. Killmonger's its best friend. And because of one of those hooks right now, TOV Mobius, there's just a lot of upside to being a Killmonger deck. Like, I see a bunch of high infinite players making what I consider to be basically the same post every so often, which is like, hey, I'm playing this deck. I don't know why, but it feels kind of good. And like the answer is basically always they have either Mobius or Killmonger in it, and they're playing whatever point package with it. Like just anything in those cards, it's like, oh yeah, no, this is actually just like kind of fine. As long as you're generating points and doing that, it really doesn't matter what you're doing. And Muse hooking directly into Killmonger is probably the biggest thing that moves me in his favor right now, because Killmonger is one of the best tech cards in the game. We have a section later on called Tech Trio. He's one of those segments, right? Like, my big question for this card is, how does he compare to something like Phantom X in terms of being a point addition for this card? Will I want to play him in baseline Destroy? Because I can definitely see a world where what I'm doing with Muse is he's going to be a 3/12. Death is going to be a 3/12. That's my final turn. That kind of thing seems like fairly compelling to me in a much more small ball way than typical Destroy. But I think Destroy needs to get smaller and doesn't need those giant nulls and Zolas nearly as much. I don't know. Largely, the biggest thing that compels me about this card is that it wants to be a Killmonger card. It hooks into Killmonger, and so in metagames that Killmonger is good, it gives you a reason to run Killmonger when Killmonger isn't hitting their stuff. And that's a really important thing. It's what allows the Mobius thing to succeed, is like that it has all these hooks that make it do something positive for your game plan rather than be reliant on whether it's good against what your opponent is doing. And to me, I think that's the most appealing thing about Muse.
Totally. Anytime you can use a tech card in an offensive way, not just a defensive way, that's always a good thing, especially when it's a premier tech card, which you're totally right, Killmonger is right now. I'm a little suspect on it in like classic Destroy. You don't really, obviously you're doing a lot of destroying, but most of the time it's more, you're not as spread out in where you're destroying.
No, but
right?
you can, right? Like
You
for
can,
you can go like, oh, this is one lane, this is lane 2, this is lane 3. You could probably make it happen, is sort of my thought. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's possible that the weird thing about Destroy is that whenever you try to make a small ball version of Destroy for like a relatively small ball meta, you lose to anyone going any bigger than you. And it's a really unfortunate dynamic that I think holds the deck back. But I do think that like Muse is just at baseline 3/12. The ongoing part is amazing. It doesn't need to see any of that happen. You don't need to blow your Killmonger early. You can Killmonger on the final turn of the game and it will still make him work. That feels like it's like advancements in the technology that lets them hook cards into other cards. Like they were like, they got somewhere with this one where it's like, there's not anything on this card that makes me feel like, oh, it looks like it's supposed to do this, but it doesn't do this. And sometimes they actually do make cards like that.
Sure, totally. I do think also just like in this meta, the fact that there is so much Mobius because it is a premier card.
Yeah.
You know, if you're looking Death as Death is a clear partner to this card, and all of a sudden, you know, then it becomes an 8/12 that's useless.
Yeah.
So like you fit LDS in there, maybe. I don't know. Probably not. Now we're coping a little too hard, but maybe.
I mean, you could just put this in Phantom X and try to make that work. I think
Sure.
that the problem with Phantom X is there just aren't enough ones in the deck for my Killmonger to be good, and I'm really only blowing up one lane if I'm doing Carnage or Captain Marvel with it, and he's also asking me to discard, and maybe that doesn't work. But some sort of just like mid-rangey space here feels pretty open if you can make it happen.
Yeah. I think Phantom X, it's too hard with the discard cards that they're asking of you to really squeeze all this in.
Yeah.
To me, the thing that's probably gonna be the best when this card comes out is Morgan Le Fay, but just because it doesn't die to Mobius as much. But who knows? I mean, I could see. I mean, I'm gonna try Mockingbird or Deathbird because I just love that package.
I like how you were like, you know, Death, it'll get Mobius, but Mockingbird, that's just gonna be fine.
No, I mean, I'm gonna cope on Deathbird, which just completely dies to Mobius.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm gonna cope anyway. Maybe I'll throw an LDS in there.
Get a Mother Escani in there.
It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. But I'm gonna try it.
Next up is Punisher War Machine, a card that seems to have the consensus of it's not very good. A lot of people are just like, this is like kind of replaceable. I have like a vaguely contrarian take on this, which is not to say you need to go out there and get Punisher War Machine right now or anything like that. But it is a card where it's like, I can see a world where this is like a legitimately good card because there's just not really anything else in the lane that it is where it's like, a card that can really provide extra energy that you don't necessarily have to have like a focused plan to get rid of the downside for. Electro Blink, Electro War Machine. Those are the things that it does. That's basically it. You either do that with those cards or you are playing one card a turn, right? Punisher War Machine being so open-ended makes me feel like there's a chance it just sort of hasn't really been figured out in a meaningful way. And energy being such a good thing generally makes me feel like this is the kind of card that, like, if in 3 months, you know, maybe everything's different, but it's just one of those cards that sits in the back of my mind that makes me think I can see a world where this card is legitimately good and people are like, what the hell is going on? I know you've been playing a lot of Punisher War Machine recently. Where are you at on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a solid to mid card. I think it's underrated in the terms of everyone saying it's bad. I think we're going to look back on it in a lot of the same ways that we look back on like Superior Spider-Man, which is a very direct comparison because it's +1 energy a turn. Where when that came out, a lot of people thought, okay, this is kind of shit. And then it kind of found some niche homes. And frankly, I think Punisher does too. It's a weird meta for it because there's a lot of high prio or a lot of high tempo TOV decks. So, you know, that's kind of tough in the mirrors, but you know, that's what I've been running it in a lot, along with a Nightmare deck. And I mean, it feels really good, right? Like it's a card where if you get it early, it feels amazing. And if you get it late, it feels awful. So if it's something where you can squeeze it in, where, you know, it's maybe the 10th, 11th, 12th card, you can really make some use out of it, but it's not like a premier card. If you have a low collection, I wouldn't rush to get it. I think it's pretty good, but it's like solid, but it's not as bad as people say, for sure.
So I guess that brings us to, I kind of feel like it's been, you know, 5 months since basically we've had one of these, right? Like it's been a long time since the meta's been good. And I think in ways that I didn't even really appreciate. The meta right now is just a much more enjoyable experience than it was under Star-Lord and Sholau, even though those cards, to me, were like beatable kind of things to be doing. This is a better metagame. The games are more fun. There are more decisions being made. The point ceiling, and I think this is the critical thing, I've started to believe that the lower the point ceiling is in any given metagame, the better it is. Just straight up. The lower the point ceiling, the better the metagame. And people are going to get mad at me because like a lot of the ways you get a point ceiling low is like a bunch of tech cards, right? We're going to talk about Gambit. He's one of the things keeping the point ceiling low to some degree. Mobius keeps the point ceiling low. Stardust keeps the point ceiling low. Everyone hates these cards. But I think you get more enjoyable games of Marvel Snap when your positioning matters. And when you can make different decisions on the final turns of the game. And we haven't had a sort of minimalist one of those in 5 months. And I didn't realize how much I missed it until I had it again.
Yeah, I mean, anytime, to me, a good meta is any time where the deck choice doesn't matter as much as gameplay choice, right? Like what you were saying, like the cards the order in which you play your cards and where you play your cards matters, right? You're not getting comboed over like too crazy. And I think that's because, the premier decks we have right now can put out a lot of points, but they can be countered by like very specific tech cards. And it's not like the Shu Lao meta, Star-Lord meta, where it's like, okay, maybe I can fight one of these things, but I can't fight both. The answers to both are in completely different directions. So like, what am I supposed to do? Like there's no intersection. Now it's like, okay, like I think everyone thinks the V-hand deck is really annoying. I would 100% agree with that. But in a lot of ways, it's very like Mobius just ruins that deck. Like the point output is not that high unless they're doing like shenanigans with Escani Sasquatch.
Yeah.
Or just Escani and like, a IP, whatever. But the point output's not that high. It's really frustrating when you're playing against a lot of Gambits and that just counters your deck, but it's the same thing. I compare it a lot to Mr. Negative. I call it like Timu Mr. Negative because it gets shut down almost as hard, maybe not quite as hard, but almost as hard. And if you don't shut it down, then you just retreat. Like you just know, okay, I just retreat.
That like Gambit is such a weird card for me. And I guess, that is the next topic. So let's just, we're gonna click the button on that. We're gonna just jump right into Gambit because I think that I have two takes on Gambit that I worry are too nuanced to communicate in a way that is clear and concise. The first one is he's probably a little too good to be as annoying as he is. Like I checked out some stats on Untapped in preparation for this episode, and Gambit has like a 15% play rate throughout various segments, basically. Like that seems to be like the number. It gets a little bit lower the lower you go for fairly obvious reasons, but in high infinite, he's like 15%, and then like 70 to 99, he's like 12%. Like it's like a pretty reasonable amount of people are going to be playing the card. That's probably a little too high for a card that does what he does. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, I think that blowing up your opponent's stuff is not something that should be in 15% of games, probably, right? Like, that's sort of where I'm at. If he was at like 8%, I would be like, I don't really see any need to nerf this card, basically. Because on power level, Gambit just simply isn't that much of an outlier. It's purely just the dynamic he gives matchups of this like 100-0 feeling. And as we talked about, that is one of the characteristics of a good meta, is that you don't have things like that a lot of the time. But I think that it is more about how he feels than how strong he is. I looked at the stats in top 10% Infinite. Gambit has a comparable win rate to Punisher War Machine, a card that the community consensus on is, this is terrible. Why would I go buy this? And then the community consensus on Gambit is they have to nerf this crap. Comparable win rate to Punisher War Machine, comparable win rate to Nightcrawler, like lower than basically every card in the TOV deck. Like, just it is a card whose vibes are terrible. It has a little bit of Arishem's disease. And I think that is the kind of thing that they are reasonably able to balance. And part of my dearest and most ardent wish is that people who want to get Gambit nerfed stop framing it in terms of power and start framing it in terms of this is just like kind of bullshit, right? I don't think the power argument has legs. I do think that this sucks and it shouldn't be a big part of the metagame argument kind of does.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. It's almost like Mill, right?
Yeah.
Like where it was never actually that good. I mean, Gambit's a lot better than Mill ever was, but it's just annoying, right? Like I was playing in a tournament match today, right? And the guy played 4 Gambits, but I won because I had a War Machine. The only thing left on my board was a War Machine in one lane and an Infinite in the other, because it turns out, unless it completely counters the deck, playing 4 Gambits is actually not good, right? You don't get any power unless you got a bunch of Victoria hands down too somehow. So, but saying that, even winning felt awful. Like it's not fun to see 2 cards on the board, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I got some enjoyment out of the spite of beating a 4 Gambit gamer, but I mean, it just wasn't a fun match, right? It's the same thing as Mill, where you lose all your cards, you have no cards in your deck, and you still win the game, but you're like, well, that sucked. Like that's not fun.
Yep.
So I do think, like, at the end of the day, the card is not that good. It's being propped up by Mother Escani and Victoria Hand, but it's annoying.
I think the thing is, like, it is a good card, but in terms of being a good card, it's a good card. Like a lot of things are a good card, right?
Yeah,
like
it's not that good, is what I was trying to say, right? Like it's like probably doesn't like on pure power, it doesn't deserve the nerf bat, but like they shouldn't really balance the game on how good it is other than how fun it is, right? And most of the time, the more balanced the game it is, the more fun it is. But at the end of the day, the reason you want balance is because you want the game to be fun. And if a card's not fun, but it's balanced, well, then that defeats the purpose.
For the record, like if you put a gun to my head, I would say they shouldn't nerf Gambit. Because I think that there is like a sort of associated psychic cost of like just nerfing any card, I feel like is harmful to consumer trust in ways where it's like, if I can find a reason not to do it, I would probably choose not to do it. And with Gambit, I can find a million reasons not to do it. Now, that said,
Sure.
I do think that it would be like a reasonable thing to do. What I'd be really worried about though is like the world where, let's say they're like, yeah, we should nerf Gambit, but like he's not very good. So what would that nerf be? And then they 3-2 him, and all the people that were complaining keep complaining because it did nothing, because he's like, you'd still play him, right? Like that's sort of the world that I would want them to avoid, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what the change that would make it would be, but to me, the change that I would probably want to go in the direction of is where you're not incentivizing copying it,
Sure.
right? Because it triggers off copies, but it's really like one Gambit is not annoying. Like it just isn't. Like if I mean at this point, there's so much mental scar tissue around that card, it probably still is. But like,
RSM's disease, man.
yeah, sure. I mean, I have that mental scar tissue with
Yeah.
RSM, but I mean, I don't care. I think like one Gambit's really not a big deal. It's just the fact that we're encouraged to copy it, both because that's how it triggers, and you know it can go a little crazy when you copy it. I think they should change. I don't know how they do it. I don't have a solution in mind, but not making it based off copied cards, right? Not slotted into a way in which it fits so naturally in V-Hand and you want so many of them, right? It's just like that's an incentive that probably shouldn't be there. But changing it would obviously change the entire card's identity and like what decks it goes in. But I think that's a bullet they're going to have to bite.
The tech trio of Mobius, Killmonger, and of course Shadow King, although I think he's pretty clearly the bronze medal of the two, is a very notable part of this metagame. Mobius, I mean, it's just unbelievable against Mother Escani decks, much better against the V-Hand versions, because the V-Hand versions, like, if someone is trying to Gambit you 4 times, the only way they do that is by cheating like 6 energy. That's the only way they ever do that. And if you just make them not do that, then they can't Gambit you 4 times. And that's been like a big thing that I've been talking about a lot recently, that basically every time I've mentioned this in a video, someone in the comments would be like, I didn't think about that, and now I am doing that, and I no longer feel like Gambit is a huge problem, right? And like, so I keep mentioning it over and over because every time I do, it apparently does help somebody. And that's like a really big thing for me that's actually making this metagame enjoyable, is like, normally, a Techno-Organic Virus deck would be the most unplayable pile in a world where people are copying a bunch of Gambits. But because Mobius is that good in the matchup, the deck not only exists, but is one of, if not the best deck in the game. And we have Killmonger, which is kind of like a Gambit everyone can run against the Techno-Organic Virus deck. Like, I want people playing Marvel Snap to just be like, I want them to pay attention to how many times they lost to Gambits that they would have also lost to Killmongers. Because I gotta tell you, it's a bigger number than I thought it was. When I started paying attention to that, I was like, damn, that's really happening. I'm playing a lot of 1-drops right now. I'm playing a lot of Shadowlands Daredevil. I'm playing a lot of Martyr right now. I'm playing a lot of Techno-Organic Virus. I would have lost to a Killmonger. It's not really Gambit's fault here. That's just how it is. Killmonger's amazing at beating TOV decks. It's just as good as it gets. And even though there are TOV decks like what you're doing with the Nightmare stuff that are bigger, I'm very happy to deal with a guy playing 1 card a turn. Yeah. Very, very happy to deal with that. If I can just make you if I can just not have to worry about that stuff, I'll Killmonger any day. Shadow King is definitely the bronze medal here. He's a nod to the, Captain Carter buff decks. And it's not like he's not good there, but he's a lot worse than Mobius is against V-Hand, and a lot worse than Killmonger is against TOV. And you kind of use the combination of Mobius and him to make the matchup against the buff decks bearable.
Totally. And I mean, I think he hard counters that deck a lot less than the other 2 cards. Because those are that's the 3-headed monster of the meta, right? It's TOV, Gambit, or well, Victoria Hand really, and the Surfer deck. And the Surfer deck's not seeing as much play as the other two. It feels
which
like,
is insane because it's probably better.
It's probably the best. Yeah, it's probably the best one.
Yeah.
And for a while, like before I was running Mobius, I was running Cosmo Shadow King in that deck because I was just terrified of the Surferless Surfer. Whether or not you run Surfer in it, right?
Yeah.
And that felt like it was better. But then I was like, and in my head, I was like, okay, I'm just dead to the Gambit players, and I was okay with that. And I made the swap because everyone was on Gambit, even though the Surfer deck is just like insanely unfair.
I think it's a little bit hard to play the Surfer deck is sort of the thing that like gets me. It's pretty easy to understand what you're doing in V-Hand. You copy a Sasquatch, you copy a Gambit, you copy a V-Hand. That's kind of it, right? Like, you're really not doing anything else. It's whatever, right? In the Surfer deck, it's like there's 3 years worth of muscle memory telling you to Surfer after the Brood. And it's like, no, you have a Captain Carter and there's a Maverick behind the Captain Carter. You got to Surfer before the Brood and then use the Maverick on the Brood. That'll get you 4 power instead of 2. And like, there's just a bunch of weirdness going on in there that requires a little bit of unlearning. I think a lot of damage got dealt to it by the inclusion of Surfer in the sense that like, if you play it like a Surfer deck, you're playing it wrong. And
totally.
It's easy to look at that deck and be like, oh, it's a Surfer deck, and so I want to play it like a Surfer deck. And it's like, no. If you're doing that, you are committing yourself to like being mid. You are cutting off the reason we're playing this deck, which is the really stupid high rolls. But also, like, it's very counterable, and you lose. Yeah. You look so stupid when you get blown out by like a Cosmic Ghost Rider or whatever. You look so dumb. Like, I think people just don't like doing that.
It is wild, though. You're totally right that how many people's play patterns are just like ingrained in them, and they're completely messing the deck up. Like you see top 100 players on ladder, and they're playing the Surfer last when they have the Carter Maverick lane, and it's like, okay, you're just leaving points on the table, right? There's no reason to do this. But I think that deck is kind of. I mean, that's a combo deck.
It's the scariest deck to play against in the entire game.
Yeah, like I've seen, I messed with that deck for a little bit, and then I was like, okay, this isn't really my style. It's a little too combo-y for what I like to do. But I was beating out Man Spider decks, and it was like, that's crazy. That's nuts. You're not supposed to beat a Man Spider deck on points. Like that's illegal.
I had a 38 power Brood.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like not like all combined 38. Like one Brood was 38. I had 3 of those.
And I'm over here happy when my Nightmare turns my Starbrand into a Brood, right? Yeah, and that's still getting just completely high rolled.
The thing that is so frustrating about that deck for me specifically is I do not feel like I can ever snap into it. At any given time, I'm just like, you need to be like obviously not doing anything for me to feel comfortable snapping into this. Like you need to, like, it's like, okay, they take 2 turns off, they play Storm, they play Mother Escani.
Yeah, you can't snap until 5.
What does that mean? Exactly. You can't do anything with it. Like it could mean anything.
The only turn you can snap that deck is turn 5, and then you both know that you're losing. Yes. So it's like, why are we bothering, right?
It's like it is genuinely astonishing how just like never I feel like it is actually positive AV to snap, because I will never know, because by the time you actually are able to snap, both of you know what's happening. It's like there's just nothing. There's nothing there. You just don't.
When that deck fails, it fails, and so that player is not coping. Yeah. Like there's no cope stat. There's no turn 6s with that deck. Almost at all.
It's the love child of Star-Lord and Sholau. That's it's just like you just never like it's did it happen or not? You don't know. They know, and one of you is gonna leave.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about Mother Escani. I think it would be pretty reasonable. And I think if you like polled, you polled like the top 100 players and asked them what the best card in the game was, she'd probably be the one that won that poll, if I had to guess, right? Like, I don't necessarily know if that's true. I think you could give nods to things like Mobius or whatever, but those exist because of her. Mother Escani is an astonishingly powerful card that manages to feel... She doesn't feel like she'd be that strong. That's not an incredibly powerful line of text, but she just does a lot of work in terms of both energy cheat and buff and copying. She does things that every deck that can build around her is incentivized to continue doing so. Like your original version of the Virus deck was just a super giant deck that was playing Mother Escani instead because the theory was just literally that's a better card. Like I would just rather do that. And now that I don't have to super giant Sholau and Starlord, I'm just going to play a good card instead. And I kind of wanted to get your take on where that card is at, because if we're talking about like things that I guess you'd say smart people suggest as topics for nerfs, right? Like if someone who's like, yo, I'm good at this game, I think they should nerf Mother Escani. Common take. What is your take on that discourse?
I would say that, and I would wonder if you would agree with this, Mother Escani is the card that would be the closest to the unanimous best card among top players that I can remember in a very long time. Besides like Shu, when Shu came out that week, right?
Yeah.
Because then Starlord came out, and even though Starlord was never as good, like, well, when it came out, maybe it was, I don't know. But like then it became a little more divided. I mean, I think like US top 100 players, that's like borderline unanimous, I would say.
Probably. I don't trust anything to be unanimous, but I'd say she'd probably get a majority.
But, and the funny part about Escani is she kind of is the reverse Gambit, where she's actually really good, but she doesn't feel that bad to play against most of the time. Because you don't necessarily see how cracked she, like when you see it when you're getting like quadruple Sasquatched, right? When it's like, Escani into a Moon Girl, or even just like a
Escani Quinjet Moon Girl is some shit.
Like,
that is a play.
That is a little more obvious, but even when you just like Escani a TOV, which like you don't even get the +2 power, and that is just an insane line. Like it is broken, but it doesn't feel that broken because you're not seeing the effects. You're seeing the end result, but you're not realizing how enabling Mother Escani is to whatever nonsense they're doing, right? And it's one of those cards that like you shouldn't be able to play it in that TOV deck, right? It makes no sense.
None.
There's no synergy that like naturally, like no one when that card came out was like, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it in a super giant deck, right? That doesn't seem like it would make sense, but it goes in everything. You can run that card in everything. You can run it in a Firehair deck, and when it turns out when you Mother Escani a Firehair, that's kind of cracked. You can run it in like anything with a good 4-drop. Turns out if you can play 2 of the good 4-drops or 2 of a good 3-drops, with another card, it's really good.
Ikari is like the most mid card ever, but I've had a deck running through my head that I haven't fully thought out. That's basically just like, what if I Mother Escani Ikari? That's the entire premise.
It really doesn't even feel like 4/4. That stat line seems very bad, right? But then you realize, okay, it's getting +2/+2, and then you're realizing you're losing 2 energy, and it's just like, that doesn't even start with the fact that you're duplicating a card, which it turns out throughout the history of the game is just busted, right? Anytime you can have 2 of anything, right? Like with Prodigy or Frigga, turns out it's really, really good. And you're not paying a premium at this point, really, because of the discount and the power. You're not really paying a premium for it. And on top of that, unlike Frigga or unlike Prodigy, it's completely hidden information. You have no idea what they're Escaniing. So it's just like, it really doesn't have a downside. Besides, okay, Mobius hurts it, but like still good even if you get Mobius.
I think one of the things that Mother Escani teaches us is they've made a lot of hullabaloo in the past about like, you guys really don't understand how much a point of power matters. And I don't know how true that is, but I will say is a point of energy that matters a shitload. Like that is like the big thing with the, like just a little bit of energy on something that you have agency over. That's serious work right there, right? Like not only is she giving you more stuff to do, you control what that stuff is. So you get to choose what the best option to get the discount, the buff, the second copy of. She's just a very, very powerful card for all of those reasons. I see people proposing, like, what if she showed you the card? Would that make her more balanced? And I think that it would for us. Like, for you and me, it would definitely work. Yeah, but one of the things that we've learned over Marvel Snap's long history of, like, trying to use open information as a balance method, like original Red Hulk and things like that, it tends to not actually work for the majority of the people who play this game. So that is something that I think would actually be a bad balance change, because what it would do is it would balance her for us and not for like everyone else who plays this game. And I think that's the opposite of what you want to do. You want to balance her. You want to aim your balance at not us. You don't want to listen to us. You want to aim your balance at the people that are the majority, not the people that are like fart sniffing up here.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't really help, the guy sitting at home on the toilet who queues up for, 1 or 2 games a day or whatever.
Yep.
And for us, it would make
for
a difference.
us, it would be massive.
Yeah, totally.
It would destroy her cube equity in high infinite. Like it would
be really good, but
she'd be good, but it would really crush her cube equity.
Totally. Because like people leave on just playing Escani, right? And then their nightmare runs wild. I mean, like not the card nightmare, but it's like, okay, well, that is a Sasquatch. And it's like, no, it was an Iron Patriot, like big deal.
Yeah.
So I do have a nerf proposal. And the reason I have a nerf proposal is because card gamers don't read, and this is how I read the card when it first came out. And this is how I thought it was going to work until I actually played it. I think the card should only give -1 and +2, and you could maybe even bump it up to +3 on the new card. And I think that solves a lot of problems, right? Because it's not as cracked with a 4-cost
and
card.
You can't duplicate it a bunch.
And you can't it does not compound. When you Grandmaster it, the Grandmaster line is so insane because the original card gets -2 and the second copy gets -2 and also +4, and that's just busted, right? Like that is busted. I think that would solve. It would still be a really good card. It turns out duplicating whatever key card you want to be duplicated, it's still going to be really good. I have no doubt in my mind. I actually think the card is a really, really cool card, and it's like the opposite of Gambit. I don't want to nerf it because it can do so many cool things, but like it needs to be nerfed because it is so strong. And I think the not letting it compound like that and maybe only having it affect the copied card would really go a long way towards sort of like maybe steering it towards like it should go in a Victoria hand deck, right? Like it's a copy card, right? So maybe we prioritize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine that you'd probably have to give her a point of power if you did that. That's sort of where my head is at.
I think so. See, I was thinking you even give it like +3 on the copied card.
I was saying +3 on the copied card, point of power to her. That would be like if I were at a bargaining table with, not Glenn Jones anymore, Jules Robbins. If I were at a bargaining table with Jules Robbins, I'd be like, I think you got to give me a little bit more here. But I don't know.
I agree, and I think that kind of speaks to how fun that card is normally I'm like really harsh with my nerfs. I know you're not, but I like to kill cards that I think are annoying. But I want this card to be good. Like this card is fun. It feels fun to play. It doesn't, the effects of how much it sucks to play against aren't always felt. But like it's a cool card in concept. It's just way too strong.
Speaking of cool cards in concept that might be a little too strong, Techno-Organic Virus, statistically, probably the best deck in the game if you just look at raw numbers on Untapped, which, not sure you can necessarily do that, but it is a deck that is seeing a ton of play, a ton of innovation, a lot of the creativity in the spaces in the TOV space. I think it's a pretty good card that is largely undermined by Killmonger existing. But it is like the kind of card where it's like, okay, we're finally here. We're playing. This is Zoo. Like people haven't realized it. We're playing Zoo. This is just good Zoo. That's what's happening right now. We're playing Martyr. We're playing Ebony Maw. We're playing Zoo, dude.
I would actually compare it to a different archetype.
Sure.
But I want to say, like, the fact that it is so good when the things that make this like really enable this card do die so hard to Gambit just goes to show that this card is insane. But the archetype I would actually compare this to is Cerebro. Because if you're playing this 3 times, it's +3, like a Cerebro, right? If you have a Mobius down, you're spending 3 energy to get +3 on all your lanes. Yeah, maybe they're not filled, but it's basically a Cerebro. And you don't have to run shitty cards or low power cards.
It doesn't take up a space either.
And it doesn't, it doesn't die to locations. Like some locations are bad for it, right? Like if you can't play 1-drops there or whatever. And if you don't have a Mobius or you don't have a Black Swan, maybe you're not playing it 3 times. But it turns out playing like really high-powered cards that you could then essentially give a Cerebro buff to, that's pretty good.
I think what I like about the deck is that it's just super fair. Like, it's just the fairest good deck we've had in a long time. Like, what are you doing? I'm playing a big guy and buffing it.
Yeah.
That's it. I don't have like a lot of weight. Like, if you,
guys.
like if you dodge Mobius, if you dodge Shadow King, and you go over the top of me, I lose. If you're playing Hela, I lose. But just a lot of that.
It's taken a lot of cards that never really saw play, and it's made them really strong, right? I mean, you know, some of that has been happening with like Ozymandias making like, you know, Debris and, you know, Rhino good or whatever, but those are great cards in this deck because, you know, you like the rocks because you can make them bigger. Or any TOV deck, right? And I mean, part of it is, you know, Daredevil's the season pass card. The Daredevil stuff is kind of naturally a TOV deck, although frankly,
you think it makes the deck worse, don't you?
I think it makes the deck worse. It's like great. Now we die to Shadow King and Killmonger. That's fun. And you know, the draw equity is not great. I know a lot of people really love Daredevil, so like it's maybe a bit of a
I think he
take.
probably makes the deck a little bit worse, but it's not like enough that I'd be like mad at it. I think it's a very fine, like slightly worse version of the archetype, if I had to guess.
Sure. Yeah. But no, I mean, TOV's cool. It's weird. It's like one of those things where a lot of the like high infinite off meta gamers were like obsessed with TOV, like even before the nerf when it was like miserable.
You mean the buff, right?
Sorry, the buff. Yeah, when it was plus two to the cost. Yeah. And it was weird because we kept playing TOV. It got that big buff, and for the first like 4 days, no one was. I mean, we were like a lot of the people were still playing TOV, and then all of a sudden I was like, wait, this card's actually like insane, like very good.
Yeah.
So that's another really cool card too. I mean, it's a cool archetype. I mean, it probably needs to get nerfed somehow. I don't know how I'd do it.
Yeah, I can't figure out a good way to do it. My gut check is you do like scaling instead. So instead of just going like 1 to 2, right? The first copy costs 1 more. The second copy costs 2 more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that'd be hard. That's awkward wording, right?
Yeah, I don't know how to do that. But like something like that where it's like or because like you don't want to go back to what it was totally unplayable, right? Like this is a cool deck.
Yeah, it doesn't really have many knobs at all because there's no power, right? You can't give it a half power.
I mean, they could make it cost 2. That would be horrible.
That would kill the card.
What about if it costs 0, but it's scaled by 2?
See, I don't think that changes it that much. I think that makes it. Does that make it better?
It might make it better with Mobius.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You'd have to run Mobius.
Yeah,
because now you're like it being 0 in a a Punisher, or like not a Punisher deck, but like being able to then Zero's all of a sudden Ebony Maw is a lot better in that deck, even though that's like kind of cope. Zero's. I don't think
you don't think it's 0.
I don't think 0 plus 2. It probably makes the card worse, but I don't think it does much.
Sure.
Right? Because it makes it better in some cases and maybe worse overall. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It is a card that there's really only 1 bit of text you can change.
You know, maybe it doesn't need a nerf. I don't know. I mean, like it's one of the best decks in the game, but also you can counter it. It's not as. It turns out playing like high stats cards is good too. So it's like not as. It's not the reason that deck is necessarily that broken. Like the deck is just good even without TOV.
What TOV really is like in that deck, to me, it's fuel, right? Like it's gas. When you play a bunch of high stats cards that are like super efficient, you kind of run out of like, okay, how do I add more power here, right? Like what TOV is solving for is like, I don't have things to do in the late game. I don't have ways to add more power to these lanes, and it solves for both of those things, right? Like it's just really good at doing that. Like, and I think that's really the thing that is the crux of its power.
It's Sauron, but Sauron being better and also providing value. So I think if anything, it just goes to show how bad Sauron is, right?
Excellent point. Last up, we got a soapbox segment for the guest. This is, I brought this up beforehand. He was like, well, I might talk about Mother Escani. I might talk about how TOV is just Cerebro. I was like, nope, we're putting those in the show. I don't actually know if he's got a soapbox prepared, but here you go. This is your time.
Morph shouldn't target spells.
Morph shouldn't target spells. Right.
I don't have one prepared.
No, that is true. There's actually like a shocking amount of things that should say character that say card, like just a lot of things in Marvel Snap that work badly with the introduction of skills. Like I think a great example would be, of course, Silver Sable. You know how many times you see, why didn't my Silver Saber trigger? And why didn't my Silver Sable trigger? And the answer is just, they had a skill on top of the deck. They had like an Agamotto spell, or, for some reason they're playing an actual skill in their deck. And that didn't happen. And I think that like there are just like a lot of spots where not going back and making sure that targeting is dialed in is the kind of thing that would hurt them. And it's one of those things where I don't understand why they wouldn't do it. It doesn't seem like it would be that complex. Why doesn't it get done? And it's one of those things where it's like, clearly there's just like something I don't know about going on here or whatever, but it's definitely one of those things where you're right. It just sort of shouldn't happen. And it does. And it's like, did nobody note that? What happened? Why is that not getting changed?
It does seem like you would think it would be an easy change. And then we remember they tried to do it with Shauna and it just didn't work. Like,
I forgot about that.
So it is tougher. I did think of another soapbox thing, and it's my last time I was on this show, which we should just repeat, which is that, can we just stop having doubling? Like, Escani is a doubling. Like, Iska is probably okay where it is.
Be careful. You can't say this because, like, I said they need to stop having doubles in Marvel Snap, and apparently what they heard was we need to nerf Wong and Onslaught. I was like, that's not what I meant, dude.
Not the doubling I meant. Well, and then the funniest part about that is they nerfed Wong and Onslaught, and then like left Jocasta, which is probably the worst of all of them.
The thing about Jocasta is like, I thought about this one. That one made sense to me because it's like, I don't actually know how to word her such that she wouldn't do what she does. Because technically she's only adding one. She's doing that. She's really already abiding by this rule, right? That's already happening. There's no way to make it not work like that and actually have her be a card. But yeah, I don't think I love specifically what it's done to the ongoing segment of Marvel Snap. Wong stuff, I never really had a lot of respect for you anyway. Take it or leave it. But like, if you were someone who was like Wonging a Gambit 15 times, like, more power to you. I'll play Cosmo. Feel free. Like, you go ahead. Yeah, like it is one of those things where like, I do feel like ongoing lost something meaningful there. And that is something that I don't like, especially in a world where they do that. They're like, let's address doubling. Like, isn't it the week they released Mother Escani?
Right. And then it's like, okay, here's another double effect. If you're like, maybe it's one step too far and like, thinking that maybe it's a little farther away from looking like a pure double. But like the other thing too is like, how do you balance doubling cards really? Because it's real like, Iska, I don't think needs a nerf. I think Iska is like precariously like right where it should be. But if you were
like legitimately just a 100% fine card.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. But I do hear like Iska needs a nerf or whatever, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't think she does. But if she did, how the hell do you balance her? Like, if she's a 4/2, are you kidding me?
Yeah, she's just
terrible.
Dead.
Yeah.
What if she was a 3/2?
No,
is that a buff?
See, that would 3/2 would probably.
I think it's a buff.
I think a 3/2 is a buff, right? Because if you play her if you tempo her, it's the same thing.
It's 3/2. 3/2 is a buff.
I guess it doesn't die to Shadow King.
Mother Escani my Iskas.
I mean, it dies more. Yeah, no, I mean, people are already doing that, and it's nasty. It's so nasty.
I don't know if I would call it nasty, but
it's pretty nasty.
You never play them before like turn 5. They're like 20 power max.
Yeah, like, if you play them on turn 5 and you're losing both lanes, then they're up to 20. They're 20. They're relatively 20 power.
Sure, but it's like I can think of a lot of things I do. First of all, you can't play them both on turn 5 because they cost 3, not 4.
Okay, that's
like
true.
second of all, like, I don't know. I can think of a lot more dumb things to do with my mother Escani than that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's fair. No, I know. And like I said, I don't think it needs to be Iska is not I don't think Iska's a problem. I just think they should not paint themselves into a corner with Iskas, you know?
Yeah.
Like
what if she
doubling
was?
is
Yeah.
always problematic, like for the most part. And it's like, just stay away. Like just no more. Like let's not put ourselves in. We need to perfectly nail this card. Otherwise, there's just no way it works.
It actually is kind of insane that they perfectly nailed Iska.
Yeah.
Like that's like of all the things to perfectly nail. Like you think about all the things they got wrong, right? About that season. And the one thing they got right exactly was by far the hardest card to get right. By far the most impossible card to get right. And they were just like, nailed it right out of the oven. Got it. What up?
And kudos to them for that, but let's just make it easier on ourselves if we're the balancing team. Let's just not do that. Let's stay away. Yeah.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I've been KMBest. He's been Butt. He sometimes streams on Twitch. He streamed for 2 days in a row prior to us recording this, which I assume will be the last 2 streams we see of him in the calendar year 2026. But just in case, where can they find you?
Yeah, twitch.tv/Buttsquad888. I don't know about. There is a really solid chance it's the last 2 streams in the calendar year. It's definitely the last 2 streams for a while. So I appreciate a follow if you want to throw me one, but don't expect to see me on Twitch anytime soon. Besides in Twitch chats where I perennially reside. But
it's true.
Streaming's fun, but it's not an everyday situation for me. That's for sure.
All right. Thank y'all so much for watching. Make sure you check them out, and I'll see you in the next one.